You're trying to improve the performance of a forward who's approaching the ruck at hitting the defence at a good height. And that would be a key learning outcome, and you design your session based around an outcome which is to be able to adapt your body height in relation to the situation.
We might say to an athlete in let's say a 5v5 or 3v3, and that athlete has a propensity to dribble constantly down the opposition's forehand, and it becomes very predictable. And so we might say, okay, a constraint for you, an individual constraint for you, is that on reception of the ball, you have to be attacking the opposition's backhand. Implicitly now, that athlete is having to explore within the environment when they can and when they cannot attack the backhand of an opponent.
One example I just done last weekend was the beginning of a contest, that people come out to the beginning of the round and they stand and look at each other. And I watched it time and time again, and I taught 3 athletes that they needed to have a faster start, they needed to punch when they got to the centre of the ring. I developed a theme to a round where they only sparred for 20 seconds, but in that 20 seconds there had to be action. But when we watched it back on footage with the video analysis, they were like, I get it now, you know, the penny's dropped. I felt it, I understand what it feels like, I've seen it. So that for me was quite reassuring that, you know, we're heading in the right direction.
So what you're not doing as a coach is saying, this is when you can and this is when you can't. You're adapting and modifying the environment and the task and the athlete to create implicit learning.
You'd actually need an approach which is interdisciplinary to identify key limiting constraints. And then once you unlock that, you get creativity, you get acceleration of development in that particular task.
It's very challenging as a coach to think about session design around things like how might I manipulate the task here, how might I manipulate the environment, how might I constrain the individual, what potential avenues might I explore in that session, and having those things sort of prepared and planned. And so you're ready if you need to modify or adapt within the session, and if you see the rate of progression or the challenge point isn't right, you've already thought ahead of how you may modify and adapt. Often a really good coach has done an awful lot of thinking and an awful lot of consideration of how to design the session, and they are building a lot of implicit learning.